Hi, I'm Emily and I am here with Maya Murphy's attorney, H. Daniel Murphy. Attorney Murphy practices at Maya Murphy's law offices in both New York and Connecticut. My question today for Attorney Murphy is, I've heard of a prenup, but is there such a thing as a postnup in Connecticut?
A prenuptial agreement is an agreement or a contract between individuals who are soon to become spouses. So the consideration or the give and take of the agreement is the agreement to be married. And in exchange for that agreement, the parties are memorializing in a prenup certain understandings that they may have in the event that the marriage comes to an end, whenever that may be. Among other things, those understandings could relate to division of property, whether it's premarital property or not. And premarital agreements are specifically governed by state statute in Connecticut. Unlike those, postnuptial agreements are governed by controlling case law in Connecticut, not a statute. And where judges have found them to be enforceable, they've done so even though they're fundamentally different than a prenuptial agreement. Postnups are contracts that are entered into by individuals who are obviously already married. And there may be a number of reasons why already married people may want to enter into a postnuptial agreement. Perhaps divorce was contemplated, or even a divorce action was started and then withdrawn, or maybe there were circumstances which changed dramatically that changed one party's net worth substantially, having nothing to do with the efforts of the marriage itself. The Connecticut Supreme Court has looked at postnuptial agreements and has found them to be consistent with public policy and something that should generally be enforced under the law in theory, as long as those agreements adhere to the fundamental principles of contract law, and as long as the agreement is not unconscionable, completely unfair at the time of the divorce. So the question is whether the contract, the postnup agreement, is freely and voluntarily entered into at the time it's signed. And that means that there would be no coercion, no duress, no one holding the proverbial gun to the head, and that the parties both have a full and fair disclosure of all the facts surrounding the agreement, all the property that the parties have, and individually and together, and all the legal obligations that both spouses would have under the agreement. The question is whether everyone has a full and fair understanding of the agreement, and also relevant is whether or not the parties have an opportunity to consult with counsel and consult with an attorney about the terms of those agreement, of the postnup agreement, and what they're exactly entering into. Remember that unlike a prenup, there's not an impending marriage date that's coming up. Where a prenup, you have to be concerned about the timing of the marriage, how close the document is signed in connection with the marriage, whether it's done on the proverbial courthouse or the church steps. So the time for a postnup is a little bit different because the parties are already married, and the opportunity to review with an attorney, the time is more elastic and can otherwise, for that reason, be far more important to the analysis. At the time of the divorce itself, if there's a postnuptial agreement, the court is going to be looking to whether enforcing the agreement would cause some kind of gross injustice. And that doesn't mean that the agreement cannot be relatively one-sided. Sometimes they are. And it certainly doesn't mean that everything has to be completely equitable or completely fair for the document to stand up at the time of the divorce. But it does mean that the terms would have to be so unconscionable for it to be struck down, even if it was fair at the time it was signed. Unconscionable is a very high standard. It means that the contract would be completely unjust, something that's so utterly unfair that it would shock the conscience. Remember, parties who execute a postnup are on very different footing than those who are about to enter into a marriage. And a postnuptial agreement may be a viable option for those considering divorce who want to avoid a protracted legal struggle or litigation if their efforts of reconciliation don't pan out as they hope. Parties in these cases where they're considering a postnuptial agreement are best served by consulting with independent, experienced family law attorneys here in Connecticut.
Attorney Murphy is available 24/7 and can be reached by calling 203-221-3100. You can also email Attorney Murphy at hdmurphy@mayalaw.com, and please visit mayalaw.com for more information.